Hi, I'm Tara Tillman of Westchester Realty. Thank you for joining me today for the Listing Broker training. I'm going to share everything that I know about what it takes to become a listing broker and how you too can become a listing broker. Since 1999, HUD has been outsourcing the disposition of its REO properties. HUD M&M contractors manage and market HUD's single-family REO properties. Asset managers are responsible for marketing and sales of HUD's REO properties, and that's where we come in. Because the asset managers contract with local listing brokers in all areas around the United States to market and sell HUD's properties, while they provide property management services. Contracts are solicited and awarded every 5 years. So let's talk a little bit about the application process. Before you start the application process, you want to make sure you're prepared. HUD will require that you have a commercial office space, that you have a letter of good standing from your MLS, that you have references, that you have a list of zip codes or county coverage areas, your firm's tax ID, you'll need your broker's license, and you'll need the expressed agreement of your broker in charge or the managing broker of your firm. As well, you'll need a marketing proposal. One thing you'll want to know is that in terms of your zip codes or your county coverage area, just remember that HUD will not allow any agent to provide services to properties further than 30-mile radius from their office location. So you'll want to make sure that you keep that in mind when preparing your zip code and your county list. Again, you will not be able to provide services for properties that are more than a 30-mile radius from your office location. So I can already hear you asking the question, well, can I have 2 offices? Well, yes. However, you will have to have an NAID number for each office location, meaning that each office that you have needs to be registered with HUD with an NAID number that is visible in HUD Home Store. Insurance requirements. So there are requirements for the amount of insurance that you'll need to carry to provide listing broker services. HUD does require that each listing broker provide proof that they have the requisite insurance coverage. You'll need $1 million of E&O insurance or general liability. You'll need $500,000 automobile coverage as well as $500,000 of workers' compensation insurance. And the asset manager will require that you have them as a certificate holder on all of these policies. Listing agents are permitted to list and sell properties as long as it's not prohibited by local or state law, meaning dual agency is okay as long as it's not prohibited by your state or local laws. So this is something you definitely want to consider before you decide to apply to become a listing broker. Your firm will have to abide by the fact that no one in your firm, no one in your family, no one on your staff will be allowed to purchase a HUD property as long as you are a listing agent. So let's talk a little bit about costs associated with becoming a listing broker. Signage. We all have to have signs, so that's nothing new. Lock boxes. You are allowed to use combination lock boxes as long as your MLS is okay with you using combination. I am licensed in North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, and Pennsylvania. South Carolina, for example, will not allow me to use a combo lock box, so I have to use electronic boxes, and that can become very costly. Keys. So HUD will give you key codes, and you will need to have keys cut to those codes. MLS. You will definitely need to have MLS for every area that you want to provide services for. So you'll need to have your NAID for each office, and you'll also need to have an MLS for each office to ensure that you are able to provide broad coverage. You'll also need equipment and technology, of course, internet, a digital camera, or your cell phone, because you will have to provide photos quite often. You'll need a computer with high-speed internet, antivirus software, an email account for your business, fax machine, and scanner. So here's a big one. You'll also need a commercial office location, local telephone number, a toll-free telephone number, and an escrow account. The asset manager may require that you hold earnest deposit funds in your escrow account. Now, they will allow you to transfer those funds to the closing attorney before closing, and some asset managers will allow you to have the earnest deposit go directly to the closing attorney and not into your trust account, but that's very rare. Customer service is a huge deal with HUD. You have to be responsive. You have to answer all phone calls within 24 hours, emails within 24 hours, and you want to make sure that you have someone that is dedicated in your office to answer the phones. Now, you don't have to have someone who is licensed, but you do have to have someone who is knowledgeable about the HUD sales process, because you're going to get lots of questions, and you want to make sure that the person who is answering the phone on your behalf can answer those questions. You want to make sure that you understand HUD's policies and procedures well enough to be able to help the agent can get to the sale. So for example, you need to understand HUD's escrow policy. You need to understand HUD's special programs so that you're able to assist the public as well as agents navigate anything that may arise. You've submitted your application. You've been notified that you have been chosen to provide listing broker services. And so now let's talk about assignments. Assignments are usually made by email. Each asset manager has their own unique asset management system or property management system, and HUD has its own property management system, which is HUD P260 by Yardi. You will be required to input information usually in both systems. In some cases, the asset management system will be connected to HUD system, very rarely, but if so, you'll only have to put in one system, but be prepared to have to use two systems to provide information. If the assignment is not accepted within the allotted 4 hours, the asset manager does have the right to transfer that listing to another agent. So you want to make sure that wherever you are, you have access to your email, because you don't want to miss an assignment because you were unavailable. As well, because you're going to have to be able to go into their system to accept that assignment, just be sure that you have access to be able to accept all assignments that may come your way. Initial inspection orders have 3 specific tasks. 1, the initial inspection. 2, the broker price opinion. And 3, marketing photos. Now, your initial inspection will require time date stamp photos, whereas your marketing photos will not be time date stamped. Your BPO is going to be your most important task, or one of your most important tasks, because what they're asking you about is, what do you think the possible sale price is for this property? And so you want to make sure that you're prepared and experienced in providing BPOs. The initial listing agreement is for 90 days. HUD will pay up to 6% commission, 3% for each side. There is a minimum of $1,000 commission if 3% is less than $1,000. Dual agency is permitted as long as it does not violate any MLS rules or local or state laws, or your real estate commission rules. After 90 days on the market, the asset manager can transfer or reassign that property if it has not sold. And if they choose to try a different disposition strategy, such as sending the property to auction, there would be no commission to the listing agent. So in instances where you have decided to provide dual agency, please make sure that you disclose it to all parties. Never, ever, ever negotiate HUD's contract, because you don't have the right to. Make sure you don't receive any illegal, unethical kickbacks. This is one sure way to lose your contract. LOBs are also responsible to help non-registered HUD agents. You want to make sure that you disclose the commission splits in your MLS and be in a position to explain how agents can become HUD registered. We get lots of phone calls all the time from agents who are not HUD registered. And the number one question they ask is, will you help me to put in this offer, if they don't have someone in their office who is registered as a HUD buyer's agent. Now, here's the thing to know. When we submit a bid for a non-registered HUD agent, you are now the agent of record, which means that you will be assisting this client all the way through the process. Be prepared to explain to non-HUD registered agents how to become HUD registered so that they can submit their own bids. And you do have discretion as to whether you want to submit that bid for that buyer or for that agent. Please don't make any warranties as to the condition of the property. HUD sells all of their properties in as-is condition. You cannot represent the condition at all. You must be licensed to provide listing broker services in any area that you are actually trying to provide service. You must maintain your insurance coverage throughout your contract. And you should maintain a close working relationship with your asset manager. They are your stopgap. Whenever there is an issue that you don't know how to resolve, it's always good to reach out and ask the asset manager. Don't feel that you have to try to figure it all out on your own, because what you don't want to do is make a mistake when you could have asked the question. You will routinely be required to provide inspections, MLS updates, change in property condition. That's a big one. You'll always want to notate in the asset management system as well as in HUD system any change to the condition of the property. And marketing photos. There are 5 inspections that you'll be required to provide. The first is the initial inspection. The second is the ready to list inspection. The third would be weekly or ongoing inspections. Some asset managers want weekly inspections, some want bi-weekly, some want monthly, as well as the ready to close inspection. BPOs are also a requirement, and you will be required to provide an updated BPO typically every 30 days. Of course, some asset managers handle things a little differently, but you should expect at least every 30 days. You will be required to provide an initial inspection, and this will be the first time that you visit the property. It's usually assigned and due within 1 day of the assignment. You will also be required to place a lockbox on the property at that time. Now, HUD's Field Service Manager will provide what's called a HUD Property Inspection Report. You'll need to review that before you go out to the property so that you can let the asset manager know whether there are any discrepancies or if any changes have happened to the property between the time that the Field Service Manager came out to the property and you came out to the property to do your initial inspection. Make sure you notate any discrepancies on your property inspection report. This is the report that you are going to fill out to make the asset manager and HUD aware of the property's condition at the time that you visited the property. Discrepancies are issues that would affect the marketability of the property. The PRR contains questions about the exterior and interior condition of the property. In your inspection report, you'll need to include the lockbox code as well as your contact information or the contact information of the person on your team that will be handling any discrepancies or can answer any questions about that inspection if need be. It is imperative that the PRR be completed accurately and in its entirety. So make sure you diligently provide as much information as you can about each property listed. Keep in mind that at the time of taking your photos and the initial inspection, there are several things that you want to make sure that you take photos of. You want to make sure that you take photos of the front, each side, and the rear of the property. Show the scale of the property, maybe standing away from the property. You want to take photos of the street, each side, because that's going to be important when you provide your BPO. You also want to take photos of all interior rooms, any damage that you might see, or any health and safety issues. So a health and safety issue might be a stairwell leading into the home and it doesn't have handrails. You'll want to notate that. There could also be standing water under the home or a foul smell that you can't explain. Those are maybe health and safety issues that you would want to make HUD aware of. As well, mold. If you find that there's mold in the property, you want to make sure that you take photos of those and that you go ahead and notate that and let them know that the property is not in ready to list condition because this property has mold, standing water, rodents that are very visible. The properties will have no utilities. You'll want to make sure that you take photos of all major mechanical systems, water heater, appliances. Let's say there aren't any appliances. Well, you want to take a photo of those missing appliances. HVAC system, a gas meter, electric meter. You'll also want to take a picture of your lockbox so that you have proof that you placed the lockbox on the property. You'll want to make sure that you cite any hazards. A large hole in the ground that people can't really see until you walk up on it, that would be a hazard. Make sure that your photos are clear and not blurry. And you want to try to take multiple angles of each room. I always make sure that if there's a well outside, I'll take a photo of that well so that when I get ready to put it in the MLS, I'll know that the property is on well and septic instead of public water. Here is an example of a HUD inspection photo sheet. When providing marketing photos, you want to make sure that your marketing photo shows the expanse of the room. It takes a little bit of practice sometimes to get a good angle on a marketing photo. Make sure you capture all of the interior rooms, the living room, the dining room, the bedrooms, bathrooms. You won't use those for marketing, but you might want to use those just to have in case something becomes missing or there's a question about something. You might want to hold on to those photos. Make sure your marketing photo showcases the property in its best light. You want to make it appealing to the public. A part of your initial task will be to provide a BPO. Typically, BPOs are due 2 to 3 days of assignment. It is imperative that BPOs be completed in their entirety, that you provide as much information as you can in your BPO analysis. The BPO is used to set the list price along with the appraisal. So your BPO will be compared to the appraisal that is received from the appraiser. The BPO is going to be used for determining list price, the disposition method, and will be used for price reductions. The asset manager relies on BPOs so that the property does not languish on the market, that when market changes occur, the BPO should reflect that and assist the asset manager to know whether to reduce the price or to leave the property on the market a little longer at its current price. HOA information should be noted on the BPO. You'll want to include the HOA's name, their contact information, the amount of the HOA fee, whether it's monthly or yearly fee. And if there is no HOA, you will also want to notate that. And keep in mind now, when you are placing your sign on the property, you want to make sure that you are in compliance with all HOA regulations, because if you are not, and a fee is assessed because maybe you have placed a sign where they don't want a sign or they won't allow a sign, you will be responsible for taking care of any of those fees that are incurred because you didn't check with the HOA or know the HOA rules. The second inspection that you'll need to provide will be the Ready to List inspection. Once the asset manager receives the appraisal, they will send out a task order for you to complete that inspection. This is the inspection right before you put the property on the market. So you want to pay special attention to any changes in property condition. If the property is not in ready to list condition, you want to make sure that you notate that on your PIR. And you want to have photo evidence of any issues that might exist that keeps the property from being ready to be placed on the market at that time. At the time of your ready to list inspection, you will also want to go ahead and place your yard sign. Make sure that you are in compliance with the HOA and aware of what the HOA rules are regarding signage. You want to make sure that on your signage you do have the Fair Housing logo. That's very important to HUD because, of course, they are the arbiters of fair housing. Make sure that you include a photo of that sign in your inspection report so that you have proof that you have placed a sign on the property. And ensure that you maintain that yard sign throughout the entirety of its listing. From time to time, the field service manager may go out to the property to cut the lawn. They'll remove your sign. Your sign ends up being removed by a neighbor. Anything can happen. So just make sure that if there is a point where your sign is removed or is no longer at the property, that you are paying attention and you make sure you get another sign in that yard. How that helps you is that your number is on that sign. And so, of course, we all want to get as many double sides as we can to be able to represent the buyer and the seller, if permissible, by your firm. So you want to make sure that people have a way to get in touch with you so that they can talk to you about any issues that may arise. Your initial listing assignment will come by email, and you're usually required to submit that in the MLS within a 4-hour period of time. With some asset managers, it's longer, but typically around 4 hours. So you'll want to be on top of it, and you'll want to go ahead and get that in the MLS, in the asset manager system, as well as HUD's system of record. The email will contain the list date, the list price, as well as any escrow amounts that you may need to add to your listing. It's also important that you verify your listing information in HUD Home Store. Typically, the property will show up in HUD Home Store right before you are placing it in the MLS. So you want to check that information against what you're placing in the MLS. Make your asset manager aware of any discrepancies that you notice in HUD Home Store. So you might have some information that the asset manager doesn't have. Your photos are going to be used in HUD Home Store. There will be disclosures as well as to take those disclosures to put them in the MLS so that you have covered your basis in terms of disclosing any information that may be required to be disclosed. You are required to show properties to buyers. So just keep in mind that you'll need to have someone on staff, an agent, if not yourself, who can show properties on a regular basis. Because your sign is in the yard, you will get phone calls from buyers who are not working with an agent, and they'll want someone to come out and show them the property. So make sure you have a plan in place to be able to do that. To be clear about what an escrow amount is. When an appraisal is done on a property, the appraiser will notate any issues in the property that affect HUD's minimum housing standards guidelines that HUD is required to disclose. The appraiser will say, there is $3,600 worth of damage to this property to bring this property to minimum housing standards. That amount will be placed in what's called an escrow. Be clear, the escrow amount is not money that HUD is going to pay because HUD sells all their properties in as-is condition. If the buyer is using an FHA loan, then FHA standards require that that money be put aside into the buyer's loan so that those repairs can be made after closing to bring that property to FHA minimum standards, because HUD is also guaranteeing the buyer's loan. Routine inspections are inspections that are completed weekly, bi-weekly, or monthly, as per the asset manager's guidelines. Now, you will perform these inspections the same way you did the initial inspection or the ready-to-list inspection. You are going to have time, date, stamp photos, you're going to complete the PIR, and you're also going to notate any changes to the property in that report. LLBs are required to provide updated BPOs every 30 days that a property is on market. You may not reuse your initial BPO because they want new and updated information. You need to clearly explain in your updated BPO why you believe that the property has not sold and what would make the property more marketable. You want to explain the history of the property. How many showings has the property received? Have there been any changes to market conditions or marketability of the property? Anything that would assist the asset manager into determining what needs to happen to get this property sold more quickly. When a property is pended, listing brokers are required to routinely update MLS listings as statuses change. Updates will require that you place a new MLS tear sheet in the asset management system as well as HUD's system of record. You'll make these updates when a property has a price reduction or when a property is pended, and when the property is closed. So we talked a little bit previously about the escrow and how you need to maintain an escrow account. You will be expected to deposit the earnest deposit check in your escrow account, and the selling agent is required to deliver the earnest deposit check to the listing agent 2 business days after signed contract is completed. You will also be required to upload that information into HUD Home Store. You'll need to have a copy of that earnest deposit check for upload, and you'll be required to deliver that earnest deposit check to the closing attorney in a timely manner before closing. In some cases, the asset manager will allow you to deliver the earnest deposit sooner, or that the earnest deposit can be held strictly with the closing attorney, but that's not very often. So you want to make sure that you maintain your trust account, that you update HUD about the receipt of the earnest deposit, because if you don't acknowledge that you've received the earnest deposit, the contract will be canceled, and that's not a good thing. Now, from time to time, a buyer decides to cancel the contract. And so when you're going to cancel a contract, there is a cancellation form, and this is what the cancellation form looks like. The buyer's agent will need to state the reason for the cancellation of the contract. They will need to provide supporting documentation, the purchaser type, the FHA case number, as well as the property address and signatures. Let's talk a little bit about the closing process. Your responsibility in the closing process is, first of all, to provide a ready-to-close inspection. And you will usually have about 72 hours to complete that inspection. And you'll want to make sure that the property is in ready-to-close condition. You'll do those inspections just like you've done all the previous ones, and you'll notate if the property is ready to close. You'll also need to coordinate with the selling agent as well as the closing attorney, as issues do arise before closing. Once the property is closed, then the next thing that you have to do is update the MLS and close out the listing. In order to become a listing broker, you will need to provide as a part of your application a listing proposal or a marketing plan. Now, in this proposal, what you'll want to discuss is your experience. That's your experience listing properties, selling properties, community engagement and outreach. These are all elements of your marketing plan. You want to talk about ways that you've marketed properties in the past that were unique, and how did they work, and what did you learn? How will you market HUD properties to the public? How will you market HUD special programs to lenders? We do provide marketing plans, so if it's something that you think you might need, I'll be glad to assist you with your marketing plan. In summary, now is the time to get ready for this awesome opportunity. Make sure you take time to document your processes, your procedures. Create a marketing plan to document your accomplishments. Compile client reviews and references. And look out for upcoming trainings designed to ensure your success. I'm Tara Tillman of Westchester Realty, and I want to thank you for joining the HUD Listing Broker training. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and share this information with someone who might find it beneficial.